Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the books I read in January while I put makeup on because I thought, let's try this. So if you're interested to hear about the books I read in January, please keep watching. Okay guys, so the first book I read in January was The Lost World by Michael Crichton. I reread Jurassic Park right before this, jumped straight into it, so it was really like I was on a dinosaur kick. Having just reread Jurassic Park, it was maybe even more apparent just how much this one misses the mark. It is nowhere near as good as Jurassic Park. It starts off, if you haven't read Jurassic Park, it kind of alludes to the fact that Ian Malcolm dies at the end, but then this book starts off with him like magically resurrected. Not a great start. And then, honestly, I think the movie makes so much more sense the way that the plot plays out. They're going to the island to rescue a scientist. Honestly, there are so many characters in this book, and I just like got confused constantly. I think they're rescuing Thorn, and they're going to Isla Nublar, which was Site B, where we find out the dinosaurs were actually raised. I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this one because it just wasn't really that good. And I think that the movie kind of helped the plot make more sense, where they're actually going because like Sarah's already there and they have to document, and then they send two teams. And this one, there aren't two teams. Biosyn is still in play. And so Dodson, sorry, all these names are hard, from the first movie comes, and he is also on the island, but it's not like a whole thing like in the movie. There are like stegosauruses and raptors, and the raptors are like pretty intense in this one, but really the best part of the book was the trailer scene, which is really the only part that kind of resembles the movie, and even that scene the movie did better. I just didn't enjoy this one, and it was really long. It tried to be philosophical like the first one, but it just came across as bitter almost, and so it just overall it seemed like a boring and unnecessary sequel. I don't recommend wasting your time on it. So started the year off with a bang. The second book I read was HAIKYUU Volume 12. I know I've talked about HAIKYUU a lot on this channel, but I haven't really like said more than it's about. It's a manga about of high school men's volleyball team. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about what the actual book is about. By the way, I just put on moisturizer and the Supergoop Sheerscreen, and now I'm going in with the Screen Queen Milani in 140. I used to wear the lightest shade, and then I had to bump it up because I go outside a lot more now with the dog, and even this one is starting to be a little bit too light. Anyway, so HAIKYUU is a really wholesome manga about a men's volleyball team. The hook of it is that the main character is short, and volleyball, like height, kind of matters. And so he's really short, but he's really athletic and he can jump really high. And he just loves the game of volleyball. He doesn't know it very technically because he was the only member of his volleyball team in middle school. And he like tried to recruit all these people, and they were like playing basketball and other things. Finally, he's able to recruit enough of his friends to play one game in like a middle school tournament, and so they play against this team and totally just get annihilated. And the setter on that team is Kageyama, who is like, they say is like a prodigy. Like he's super talented as a setter and can do things that like other setters can't do. At the end of the game, they like really don't like each other, and they're kind of like sworn enemies. Well, in Japan, it's a little bit different than in the US, where they apply to certain high schools. You can like choose which high school you go to, and it turns out that these two boys end up going to the same high school, and so they're going to be on the same volleyball team. Hinata, the main character, who is like a literal ray of sunshine, like I said, he doesn't know the technical side very well, but he has a lot of athletic ability, can jump really high. And Kageyama is a setter, so, and not just a setter, but like a really, really good setter. So fast forward a little bit, they find out that they together work really well, and that they're able to do like this freak quick set that no one else can do. So then they kind of have to like begrudgingly put aside their animosity and work together as a team. And so that's how it starts. As it goes on, they introduce you to the rest of the team and the other teams too, and all the characters are so well developed. It's just so cute. It is what got me through 2020. Was it 2020? It's what got me through 2021. And I'm not really paying attention to putting on this makeup, so I'm probably gonna look weird at the end of this. The third book I read was A Psalm for a Wild Built by Becky Chambers. Becky Chambers is the person who wrote the Wayfarers series. Anyway, so I read this one, A Psalm for the Wild Built. It is shorter, like I said, it is a novella. I don't know how I felt about it. It's set in a world where robots have become sentient. They all left the warehouses and workshops where humanity had them employed, I guess. The thing about Becky Chambers' books, though, is that she's such an optimist on how human beings would like collaborate and treat other sentient beings. This is like a main theme of her books. And so the humans in this world were just like, okay, cool, let's work out an agreement. You guys gain consciousness, we're gonna honor that. They like give the robots half of the planet. They like make a nature reserve, basically, restrict the human population to only half of the planet, and the other half is just wilderness where the robots live. And everyone lives in harmony. At the start of this story, it happened so long ago that the robots are almost like myth. So we're following a tea monk. So what a tea monk is they have carts with tea. They're almost like therapists in a way, where you go to them and like express your woes, and they just listen to you, and they concoct a tea based on what they think you need at the time, like if it's calming or whatever. We're following this tea monk who didn't train to be a tea monk. He just like was unhappy. He felt unfulfilled. So he's like, let me change up what I'm doing and become a tea monk. So he does. And then it still doesn't really do it for him. He becomes like a really well-known tea monk, and he still feels unfulfilled. So then he goes into the wilderness and doesn't really tell anyone he's going into the wilderness. So while he's there, he meets a robot called Mosscat. The robot is on a mission from the robots to like go check in on how humanity is doing, because they haven't had any contact in like 100 years or something. Probably like half of what I'm saying is actually true. And so then it's just kind of like them getting to know each other. I guess it was cute. It's a novella, so it's really not meant to be super deep. I did spontaneously cry, as I normally do with Becky Chambers' books. It's just, she's very good at just throwing in a line that you don't see coming that really tug at your heartstrings. I ended up giving this one 3 stars because like it was fine, but it wasn't great. And I don't know if I'll read the sequel. It just wasn't as good as I think it could have been. If you haven't read anything by Becky Chambers, I do recommend reading her Wayfarers series, or at least the first 2 books. I didn't really love the 3rd book of that series, and I still have to read the 4th, so I don't know how that one is. Excuse me while I do my eyebrows real fast. Okay, so the 4th book I read was Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. So I picked this book up because I remembered John Green recommending it over a year ago in one of his videos. As I was reading it, there was definitely a part where I thought, I'm not really enjoying this very much, but I totally see why John Green likes this book. So let me explain. This is a nonfiction. It's kind of like a book with an identity crisis. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It is part biography, it's part memoir, and it's part like essay, commentary, scientific. I don't know. The book doesn't know. It's following a taxonomist named David Starr Jordan, who apparently was like a pretty big in his field, although I had never heard of him. The author is like intrigued by him after hearing the story about how during an earthquake his life's work of all these like specimens got knocked over, and he just like frantically went and started like pinning names to them, and she was really kind of like inspired by that and wanted to learn more about his life. And so as she talks more about his life in the book, you learn more about her life too. So the reason why I think that John Green likes this book is that it is reminiscent, I guess, of his book, The Anthropocene Reviewed, and the type of writing he does for that, the podcast and the book. That book works because, like the podcast, it is an anthology. It's not focusing on just one thing. It focuses on a different thing every chapter. Every chapter, you know, he weaves in a life lesson or something, or like relates his life to whatever he's talking about, and it's, you know, compact. This book, instead of focusing on a lot of different things, you know, the taxonomist and his fish are like the main focus, and I don't think it worked very well as like the main thing, because by the end of it, it seems unfocused in a way. She's trying to relate it all back to this taxonomist, but it just like goes like this. After I finished reading, I found out that the author of this book is a co-host on Radiolab. And so after learning that, and that she's been in the podcast scene for a long time, totally made more sense, because this book seems like it was written by someone who's more familiar with the podcasting medium than the book writing memoir biography medium. And not to say it was poorly written or anything, it was odd. And the thing is, this book is marketed as science reporter. She's a science reporter, so it's kind of marketed as really being about taxonomy, but it's actually more about eugenics, which is not in the marketing at all, and I can understand why. The last half of the book is all about eugenics. It was interesting, I guess. I learned things, but as Lulu Miller is researching more about this guy's life, she finds out that he actually was kind of a bad person. Not even kind of, he was a bad person. First of all, he probably maybe poisoned a woman and killed her. Like, it's never been proven, but all signs point to him, so that was a shock. And then the bigger shock is that he was a big proponent of eugenics. Not great, not a great look. And he was like the president of Stanford. So it was interesting to hear more about how eugenics is rooted in American history, when America tries to play it off like it is like rooted only in German history. So it took a turn that I wasn't expecting, that I don't think anyone who picked up this book was expecting. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, it just wasn't the book that I thought I was reading. It was enlightening, though, about how people took Darwin's theory of evolution and kind of ran with it to push their own agenda. It's not really a spoiler because it's the title of the book, but towards the end she starts really talking about like the taxonomy. I kind of love it, because in the end, after doing all this research and following this like taxonomist whose thing was like fish, and he was kind of her hero, and then she found out that he was a terrible person, the book ends with the kind of a discussion of what the title is, why fish don't exist. Fish don't actually exist as a as a group of taxonomy. They're actually so diverse on the like tree of life that you can't just lump them all together as fish. It doesn't, the fish category doesn't really exist. And so I do kind of like how she ended up there, kind of reveling in the fact that this guy's research, his life's research, was all kind of like wrong in a way. Okay, I'm gonna put on some eyeliner, and I cannot do that while I talk, so 1 second. Okay, we're just gonna pretend like that looks okay and that I didn't totally mess everything up with that eyeliner, because I don't want to do it again. The last book I read was Migrations by Charlotte McGonaghy. This was definitely the book that made me cry right before I came on camera, because I finished it like half an hour ago. It is pretty short. It's only like 200 pages, and I checked it out from my library, so I started with the audiobook, and then halfway through I decided that I wanted to read the physical copy instead, because It has some time jumps in it, back and forth, and it's a very like lyrical, the language in it is very beautiful, and so I thought that I would like it more as the physical copy. But then I started reading the physical copy and missed the narrator of the audiobook because she did such a great job. The premise of this book is it's set in the near future. Most of the wild animals on Earth have become extinct. There's like one flock left of Arctic terns, which are the birds with the longest migration. They migrate from the Arctic to the Antarctic and back every year. And so the main character wants to follow them. So she finds this this boat of fishermen and convinces them to let her on because she's put trackers on some of the birds, and tells them that the birds will lead them to fish, even though like morally she's against fishermen because there are so few fish left in the sea. Anyway, so they go on this journey, and meanwhile it's flashing back to her life, and as the book goes on, you realize that she's been through a lot. You find out gradually through hints, like really small hints here and there, that she has done time in prison for killing 2 people. So the whole book, you're kind of trying to figure out who she's killed. And she also has flashbacks to trying to track down her mother and other things from her childhood. And so that was the reason why I wanted it as a physical copy. But again, like the narrator, she has like this beautiful Irish accent as she reads, and she brought such emotion to the narration that I really like the audiobook too. So I think with this one you could go either way. So anyway, she's following these birds while you're learning more about her life. It's not a happy book, let me just say that. In fact, it is kind of a depressing book. It reminded me a lot, not story-wise, because the story is very different, but it reminded me a lot of Station 11, because Station 11 and this book have very similar vibes to them. So if you liked Station 11, you might like this one, but keep in mind that the actual plot is very, very, very different. But this one was so beautiful. Even though it was depressing and tragic, it was still such a beautiful book. I don't want to give away very much with it because it's really one that's better going in blind. I knew nothing about it going in. I really expected it to be more about the birds, but it's really more about the people. And I liked it. I ended up really liking it. I gave it 4 stars, and a lot of that was the writing was phenomenal. You just felt it. Like you really felt the words, and especially by the end, I was really hooked there by the end. It's short. Yeah, it's 256 pages, but it feels much longer. It's a well-structured, well thought out. The world building is pretty good. So it feels like a complete, like a full book, even though it's done in 250 pages. And that's the kind of writing that I appreciate. Alright guys, and those were the books I read in January. Thank you for sitting here and listening to me talk while I put on my makeup. I think it helped me actually focus on explaining the books more, because normally I realize that I just like tell you guys my feelings about the book and don't really tell you what the book is about. So I'm gonna try to be better about that. So let me know if you guys have read any of these books. If so, what you thought about them. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to catch my future videos. Okay, bye. Did I wet my sponge? He just does it, and I forget why. I think he's following crickets, like he wants to hear crickets. I forget. Oh, that is very glittery. It's kind of pretty though. I'm totally like just going out of order with my makeup. I'm just grabbing whatever strikes my fancy at the time. I'm going to use the Becca highlighter in Moonstone. I know everyone likes champagne pop, is that right? But it's a little too dark for me, so I don't know, I've never tried it. Brown for like every day when I don't have to put on a lot. I like brown when I'm not wearing this much eyeliner. Black Ryan. Anyway, you're here for the books, probably. And she also is flashbacking. Is that a word? I just made it up. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Okay, Finn.